This is a video about finding the area of a composite, sometimes called a compound shape. A composite figure is made up of simple shapes such as triangles, rectangles, trapezoids, and circles. To find the area of a composite figure, find the areas of simple shapes and then add them together. Okay, so for our first example, I'm going to separate this into more than one rectangle. So I'm choosing to go across to separate, but you could go down as long as it's in 2 to 3 rectangles. So this first rectangle is a 6 by 11. So area of a rectangle, I do base times height. So I'm going to do 6 times 11, which is 66. Okay, and then the bottom rectangle is 21. I don't know what this length is, but I know that this whole length here, I'm going to do it in a different color, this length here minus this length will equal that one. So 18 minus 6 is going to give me 12. So I know that that length is 12. So then for this bigger rectangle, I'm going to label this one 66. The bigger rectangle, I'm going to do 21 times 12. Which is 252. So then to find the final area, I'm going to add those two together. So I'm going to do 66 plus 252 to get 318, and I won't need to remember my units, feet squared. This next shape is a rectangle and a triangle. So here's my triangle. In a different color, I'll do the rectangle. Base of my triangle is also 18 because this is a rectangle. So to find the area of a triangle, I'm going to do 18 times 7 divided by 2. Base times height divided by 2. I get 63. The rectangle, I'm going to do 18 times 12. Which is 216. So this is 216. 63. To find the final answer, I add them together. So I do 216 plus 63. And I get 279 yards squared. My next shape is a semicircle, or half a circle, and a rectangle. So here's my rectangle. Remember, this is 40 as well. In my circle, my semicircle, the radius is half of 40, which is 20. Okay. So to find the area of a circle, I do radius squared times pi. Since it's a half a circle, I'm going to do radius squared times pi divided by 2. So I'm going to do 20, which is my radius, squared, times 3.14, and then divide by 2. And it tells me to round to the nearest tenth, so I'll round to the nearest tenth. And I get 628, so I don't need to round. Then for my rectangle, it's actually a square. I'm going to do 40 times 40. Which is 1,600. And then I add those together. Equals 2,228 inches squared. The next shape is a triangle and a semicircle. So here's my triangle. Notice that my triangle lines up with my radius, so its height is 6. So the semicircle has a radius of 6. So I'm going to do 6 squared times 3.14. Again, divided by 2 because it's a half a circle. So I end up with 56.52, but it told me to round to the nearest tenth, so I'm going to leave it as 56.2. And for the triangle, I'm going to do 6 times 10 divided by 2, which is 30. So then this was 56.2. This was 30. I'm going to add them together. So I get 86.2 centimeters squared is my answer. My next shape has 3 shapes within it. So I have a semicircle. Try that again. Semicircle. That has a diameter of 20, so the radius is 10. I have a rectangle, which is 14 by 32 minus 20 is going to give me 12, so it's 14 by 12. Actually, sorry, this is a semicircle with a radius of 10. My rectangle is a 20 by 14. And then my triangle is 12 by 14. So to do this semicircle, I'm going to do 10 squared times 3.14 and then divide by 2 because it's a half a circle. For the rectangle, I'm going to do 20 times 14. And for the triangle, I'm going to do 12 times 14 divided by 2. So yesterday we practiced area formulas, same thing with Monday. This is why. So when I do 10 times 10 times 3.14 divided by 2, I get 157. 20 times 14 is 280. And then 12 times 14 divided by 2 is 84. So then my last step is going to be to add them all together. So I do 157 plus 280 plus 84. I get 521 millimeters squared. This next shape is made up of 2 rectangles and a quarter of a circle. So the quarter of a circle, when I do that part, instead of dividing it by 2, I divide it by 4. So for the rectangles, I'm going to do 5 times 3 for the first one. 5, they're actually the same. 5 times 3 for the second one. For the the quarter circle, I'm going to do 3 squared times 3.14 divided by 4 because it's a quarter. So 5 times 3 is 15. So both of the rectangles are 15 centimeters squared. Then for the quarter circle, I'm going to do 3 times 3 times 3.14 divided by 4. And I get, rounding to the nearest tenth, I get 7.1 because it was 7.065. So I'm going to add them all together. It equals 37.1 centimeters squared. Okay. This next shape has 4 shapes in it. So I have a trapezoid right here. I have a triangle. Actually, I can separate it a little further. Sometimes when you start drawing on it, you realize you have different shapes than you thought. I actually have a parallelogram. I can separate it into this parallelogram. And then I can separate it into this bigger triangle. And that'll help me find the answer. I could separate it into the smaller shapes too, but it would take a little bit more time. And I'd have to figure out different bases. So the base of the parallelogram is 8, and the height is 5. So I'm going to do 8 times 5, because that's the formula for parallelogram, which is 40. The triangle is 10 feet for the base and 5 for the height. So I do 10 times 5 divided by 2, which is 25. So then I'm going to get 40 plus 25, which is 65. So 65 feet squared. That was our last example.